Hello everybody and welcome to more Bandit Survivor, but just with a little bit less effort. Unfortunately, no face cam today. Not sure actually if I'll be able to integrate face cam into really any of these summary videos just because they are going to be hopefully quite quick. But this is going to be my review of episode 1 of Survivor UK, which just came out. It's literally just finished 20 minutes ago, and I rushed and I came to my recording area to be able to talk about the episode, which I am mixed on, I'll be honest. I know that this is the reboot. It's the first time that we've had Survivor on our TV screens in UK in over 20 years, so they're obviously going to be finding their footing. I mean, you compare this to the likes of Australian Survivor 2016, Survivor South Africa Season 6 Philippines, which I consider the quote-unquote reboot of Survivor South Africa. Again, we got season after season after season 6, and they had their flaws, and this marooning episode has its flaws, some of which are exclusive to the first episode, and I'm sure will be ironed out as we get further into the season, but some I really worry about for the future of Survivor UK this season, and potentially for the rest of the franchise, and kind of how production envision really going forward with this product. So let's start off, and firstly, if you have watched more Bandit Survivor, you'll know the first video on my channel was talking about Survivor UK about 2 months ago, when all we were getting were these screenshots and like a 30-second trailer, and we talked about this big tank-like barge marooning boat that was very reminiscent of Australian Survivor 2017 with its marooning, and oh boy, can I just say that with that comparison I was 100% correct, as that challenge was essentially what we got in Australian Survivor 2017. Now I will say that we did get an ending section that was a little bit different, but we'll go more in depth about that. But I do like this style of simplistic marooning. Again, it feels very old school Survivor. It's something that I wish modern Survivor will do. And we kind of, to be fair, saw it in Survivor 45 where they did return to the boat format. But I do like this aspect of having the contestants on the boats, just getting them to go and pick any item in front of them that they want that they feel will be useful and putting it onto their raft. Again, we had the likes of bamboo, bananas. It was really fun seeing Joel and some of his interactions, such as snatching one of the bananas from the stack and just casually eating it as the contestants are going insane. Joel was just an absolute joy on this season. Again, some things that I feel like he could tweak, but since this is the first time that he has hosted Survivor UK, and really just Survivor as a whole, I think that he did an excellent job, and you obviously can tell that he is very comfortable in this position, talking to people, narrating for the camera, whether that be on the actual island, on post, and he's just a very descriptive individual that really entices you and makes you want more. So again, fantastic job in recruiting Joel Dommett for Survivor UK. I think he is an excellent host and someone that I'm sure we'll be seeing more comedy and lines from. But we do get our standard marooning where Joel interviews some of the contestants off the bat. We do get some fun interactions, and then we start off with the contestants grabbing their supplies, putting them onto the raft, and then swimming out to the beach. And I do like the editing of this season. That is something that actually kind of shocked me, and I did have to comment a few times, is that the editing is really good. Like, for example, when they showed during this marooning how the contestants had to go onto the beach, they had a drone that flew in with a really good camera effect. We had the contestants on the raft having their tribe name above their head as like a marker almost, and I feel like that was good because it was traveling with them so we could see where they were in comparison to one another. And just as someone that edits their own videos, it was something that I had a real appreciation for, and I feel like was actually quite unique for the Survivor franchise. So that aspect of the editing from the editing team I feel like was a positive. There were a few negatives. I did previously praise Joel, but I feel like him calling out Nathan as like this big guy, firstly it felt very JLP-like, where JLP always seems to just have this one guy in Australian Survivor that he keeps almost like crushing on and having this bromance with, and Nathan seems to be that guy for Joel where he's instantly talking about how big he is. He compares him to like a Goliath figure, and I never really like this when the hosts do it. It kind of puts an artificial target on the contestant's back, and even though obviously a lot of people are going to be thinking subconsciously and consciously that Nathan is a big target and a big threat because of his physicality, again, this cast doesn't really have the hugest amount of game knowledge, so Joel could have rewired their brains to be thinking in more of a strategic sense, thinking about Nathan and maybe taking him out earlier than they might have. So it's that sort of thinking that you have to take into consideration when you say something as simple as calling out someone for being bigger than basically all the other tribe mates. But then we get to the beach where the contestants have to build basically this big inferno, this kind of bonfire with sticks and the kindling that they are provided. And again, I would have preferred if they were going to try and take this element from Australian Survivor 2017, the style of marooning, to just go all out and do what they did then, which was basically this physical last stand where they had to basically hoist a contestant up and grab the box off the hook. I feel like that was a really good ending to that, because the fire section, it didn't really make for the most entertaining of TV, and it also took up quite a bit of time, seeing obviously them having to light the fire. Then we have the issue with the wind, and then finally we get the fire finally lit for both tribes, and it does come to a pretty tight decision. I do also love that Joel is just completely acknowledging that he's biased towards certain contestants. Like, we have Pegleg, who grabs a log, I don't really know if you call it a log, but like a stick, and he snaps it apart with what Joel refers to as his fake leg, and then he just says, "I love Pegleg." And it is funny just seeing Joel call out people as his favourites. I do like that aspect, and I mean, it's just a bit of fun at the end of the day, so I don't really knock him too much for that. I do also like that Lilina, I believe they got a tarp from the barge, because I don't think the other tribe had it, but they used it to be as essentially a wind blocker, which I think was very inventive strategy and helped them obviously win the challenge. So they win the supplies that are in their box, they win flint, they win all the supplies that they got from the marooning boat, and then Joel reveals that there's an extra twist where they get all the items from the other tribe. And I'll be honest, I don't really like this. It feels very reminiscent to Australian Survivor, where last minute they just spring a twist on contestants for shock factor. And unlike Australian Survivor, where you get these big bombastic reactions and this music that sort of crescendos, here you didn't really get that. It was just contestants more so being disappointed in this twist that they weren't told about on the barge. I mean, we see Jess having a bit of a sulking face just because they legitimately thought that the items they were getting were going to go back to their tribe even though they lost. And again, it is a huge advantage for the Lalani tribe, and I would have obviously preferred in hindsight if they let the losing tribe at least keep the items that they got off the barge, because they did waste a lot of energy to get it, and I feel like it also caused the upcoming immunity challenge to be a bit more of a blowout, considering that the other tribe again just had so many supplies and so much food to be able to fuel themselves, as well as a fire, and the other tribe didn't have much. It kind of felt like Survivor Fiji with the haves versus have-nots, but again, I'm sure it'll someday even out. That's the hope, at least. So then we get to the tribe camps, and something that I noticed throughout the entirety of this episode, and as we got into the tribes, was that it felt very reminiscent to Love Island in the UK editing, where for anyone that's watched UK shows, these sorts of reality TV shows, the UK has a very distinctive editing pattern, and I figured, considering obviously that a lot of the producers and even Joel himself leading up to the event said that they really tried to reimagine Survivor but still keep it as a recognizable product in the Survivor franchise as a whole, I did think that they were going to be keeping this more serious tone coming into Survivor, but we kind of get this almost, not necessarily trashy, but this really quirky Love Island editing, where we have Lawrence on a horse and they're literally playing the song Horses in the background. And even in the tribe life, when we're getting introduced to the contestants and everyone's doing their introductions, there's just casual pop music playing in the background, which even Australian Survivor has like their own ancient voices and their intense music that they play during the tribe life scenes to add a bit of seriousness to the show. And I do worry if the producers are trying to display this as not really taking the survival aspect fully serious. Again, I understand why from a pure objective standpoint why they're doing this editing twist. It's because this is the first season of the show, and social strategy shows here in the UK haven't really been a thing. It's only really this year, last year, if you want to count like the Traders in the Circle, where we're finally getting into our social strategy shows and people are making a push to get them into UK culture. And so I guess people that would be watching like Love Island and these other shows that would be more used to that editing style are going to find it an easier transition to get into Survivor. But again, as someone that watches Survivor US and other Survivor seasons, it felt like it wasn't really in line and didn't really have that great of a synergy with the other international seasons as well as the original Survivor US editing style. And it is one of the things that maybe they tone down in future episodes and make it a little bit more serious. We obviously get introduced to some characters, and I do love that we get Lee right off the back. Again, Lee is from Northern Ireland. I'm from Northern Ireland, so obviously I'm going to have a bit of a soft spot for him. It is kind of funny. I know that in Lee's bio, it says that he was originally from Limerick, but you can tell that he spent quite a substantial amount of his life in Limerick. He does have a very heavy southern accent, and it does kind of make him a bit of an odd one out in terms of his tribe, where again, Lee is from Northern Ireland, he's got his Limerick accent, everyone else is from the geographical sense of Britain, which is Scotland, England, Wales, so he could be a little bit on the outs in that. But I did like his introduction. Again, Lee isn't really shown in that great of a light later on in the episode, but I do feel like his introduction was very strong, where obviously we get his competitive background, and I do like his sort of inspirational talk with the other guys around the well, where he says that he was this bigger kid growing up, that he was picked on, and that he only went to the gym because his friends were going, and then he got this drive and this appreciation for boxing, and now he's this pro. And I do feel like that is a very good storyline, and something that, again, a few people that are watching the show might be able to relate to, whether it's the start of Lee's message or kind of the progression where they're on the up and they're going to the gym and they're becoming more physical and becoming a happier person. And again, kind of like what they did in Survivor 41 to 44, but also again commonly associated with Australian Survivor, is they have pre-shot scenes. So again, we have Lee's boxing, we have, for example, Shay with his glasses and walking down, we have Jess and her talk about being a model, and we do get a lot of character introductions, which I feel makes us have to go at this almost breakneck pace to get through the tribe life scenes. It feels like, as I'll talk about later in the episode, some of the dynamics aren't fully realised in this episode, because again, it's a lot to cram into a 60-minute episode for the first ever Survivor season. Again, like Survivor US, even in like Heroes vs. Healers vs. Hustlers, it had a 60-minute premiere, and that was its 35th season, and even then there's noticeable editing issues and it having to get through the dynamics really quickly. I just felt it was quite a lot for the editors of the show to cram it down. We also do have a lot of Joel interjections, clearly from post-season, where he kind of has these one-liners and these quips as we transition between the tribes, kind of like, again, on our comparisons for Love Island, Ian Sterling for Love Island, and it's fine. I could personally do without it, but I mean, it's fun, so it's not too bad. So we get a few more character intros like Pegleg, Lawrence, and then we get to Ren, and I was supposed to do a pre-season breakdown, but seeing as other YouTube channels have done them, and I was going to do it last week, but obviously PGCE's just got in the way and universities, so I wasn't able to get that video out. Ren is someone who in their pre-season bio talked about being a big fan of the show, of Survivor, watching it since 14, and she was giving me Christy Bennett vibes. And then I watched this episode of Survivor, and I mean, she is literally just the UK's answer to Christy Bennett. And I might be a little bit biased because Ren follows me on Instagram. Don't mean to flex or anything, but shout out to Ren. So I like her content, and I feel like she gels well with the tribe, which is good. And on that topic, we have the barrel challenge, which is commonly used in Australian Survivor, such as All Stars, and it is a challenge that is mostly physical. There is some strategy, particularly when people start dropping out with their barrels, and we see starting off with this challenge where Leilani can't even get herself over the line holding onto the barrel, and she requires Nathan's help to be able to pull her over the line, which I'm not sure is entirely allowed because Nathan is technically helping her with the hoop, but we do see her drop out very quickly into the challenge, probably about 5 or 10 minutes, and then hands it off to Nathan, and then the tribe further struggles by Rachel giving up. And we do get these Lee moments where, starting off, we can obviously tell that Lee is teasing the tribe about how they ate and the Orange tribe didn't, and then teasing them about Leilani dropping and then Rachel, but then he just kind of turns into a bit of a prick, to be honest, by the later parts of the challenge, where you can even tell the other tribe were starting to get annoyed with the things he was saying, talking about the things that people were saying, getting annoyed. We also have this fun interaction where Sabrina is eventually the first person out in her blue tribe. She gives up her handle to the other tribe, and then from the bench starts saying how good of a job they're doing and giving them compliments, which we get moment after moment from the likes of Lawrence and Ren and even Rach talking about just how they cannot stand her, and Sabrina continues going on giving support for her tribe, which they clearly do not appreciate. That's a fun little moment. So we kind of see into the middle of the challenge where the likes of Shay and Nathan are passing the barrels to each other. Shay's struggling a lot, and I do wonder why they decided to go with this back and forth rather than trying to integrate a third person into their group. For example, what the Blue Tribe did very well was Hannah was essentially the middle person in between two others, where she would pick up a barrel and then hand one off to another person, that they're splitting 4 barrels between 3 people rather than 3 barrels between 2 people like Shay and Nathan, causing them to have less opportunities to rest, particularly because Shay seemed to be really struggling with his barrel by himself, and having to introduce a second barrel, you could tell that he was not enjoying it. And then obviously when Rachel drops, we have Richard, who was taking on the majority of the load of the barrels and then passing it off occasionally to Matthew as well, and the two were going back and forth until Matthew almost drops, hands it over to Richard, and then Richard drops with both his hands, the barrels go to the ground, and the Blue Tribe end up winning immunity, which was expected because we did get a good bit before the challenge talking about how the Blue Tribe were fully fed, they had fire. And I do also wonder if Joel was being fed lines from the producers, as he specifically targets people that we know had situations happening to them back at Tribe Life. For example, we have Richard being asked about the fire on the tribe, where he was trying to set up a fire, and we have Joel asking Jess if she was dealing with the elements okay after day 1, where obviously Jess has a big moment about struggling the first day and not expecting it to be as difficult as it was. When we get back to the tribe, where obviously Calaton is going to Tribal Council, and I thought, to be honest, that Leilani was going to be the easy boot. Again, she dropped out after about 5 to 10 minutes in the challenge, and it seemed like Shay was going to be the misdirection because he did get a few moments throughout the episode of, I guess, kind of quote-unquote being annoying. I will say that the Shay storyline being annoying felt very forced, and again, this might be because of the 60 minutes in the episode, but we only got maybe one, arguably 2 scenes of Shay being slightly annoying to the rest of his tribe mates. Like, for example, when one of the tribe mates were chopping down a piece of wood and he was saying to avoid their hands, like, that's him just looking out for a tribe member rather than trying to be a smartass or anything, in my opinion at least. So I feel like he was painted in a worse light than really he deserved, considering the edits leading up to that point. But we do also get talks about Nathan thinking that Richard gave up in the challenge, which is a storyline that I never thought would come into fruition, and I thought was just, again, kind of a red herring this episode. Hide obviously Lani boot. But it turns out that Richard is the boot of the episode, really because of seemingly this factor of him dropping the barrels both at the same time and not hanging on to one and letting go of the other. But Nathan accuses him of essentially giving up on the challenge, which is kind of odd considering that Richard, again, lasts, I'm pretty sure, over an hour in the challenge, and he's saying this over Leilani, who dropped out 5 minutes into the challenge and required Nathan to help her behind the line. Now, what I will say is that I have been analysing the episode a little bit afterwards. Again, the episode's only finished 20 minutes ago when I'm recording this, so there's not too much to analyse, but when I was thinking about it, I feel like there's more at play, where I feel like Richard was a bit more of a social pariah in his group. You really see Richard in a lot of these scenes talking at maximum to one person. He's often just lying down in the tribe shelter. He's not really talking much strategy. And Leilani, by comparison, she's there talking to Nathan and Tanuki, who seem to be the real core on the Calaton tribe. And she's pleading her case to them, where it seems like Richard didn't really talk that much to them, and I feel like that social connection between Leilani to Tanuki and Nathan was able to save her. So she seemed to be safe because of that social connection, and then if it's going to be Shay versus Richard, then obviously you're going to keep Shay, who kept the 2 barrels, over Richard. So I feel like that's the dichotomy that happened on the tribe. Again, a very confusing edit, because you come out of it wondering why on earth Richard was eliminated over Leilani if it does come down to a physical factor. But I think if you break it down like I have, and again, I could be completely wrong, I'm not sure, maybe someone from Survivor UK on that tribe will message me. If you are, message me on Instagram, please. But they might be able to break down the dynamics a bit better. But ultimately, I think it goes back to the fact that, again, 60 minutes for a marooning episode on a Survivor season that hasn't seen the TV screens in the region for 20 years plus. There's going to be editing issues, and I feel like, unfortunately, Richard's true elimination was an example of that, where I feel like there are a lot more things at play than his elimination simply because he dropped 2 barrels at the same time. I will also say that I do like other aspects of this season, such as the tribal music. I really like this sort of industrial steampunk background music. It feels very punchy. I like the tension that it provides, and sort of juxtaposes the light-hearted pop music that we're getting earlier on in the season. Now, I do wonder, because obviously we've seen with Survivor New Zealand 2016 that not all international seasons have hidden immunity idols. Joel referred to tribal immunity as the idol, so I do wonder if hidden immunity idols are in play, especially because Joel didn't ask if anyone has a hidden immunity idol. Now would be the time to play it. And seeing as Joel was copying other phrases iconic in Survivor, like "I've got nothing for you," and "I'll see you back at Tribal Council," "It's time to vote," that seems like a phrase that obviously you would integrate into the show if there was idols. So if they aren't idols in the show, it's going to be very interesting. The last time we saw no idols in Modern Survivor was New Zealand 2016. And, well, ask people that saw that season what they think of it. More than likely their reaction will be, don't watch it. So that's going to be interesting. I feel like idols do shake up the game on a season that I expect was highly recruited, that seems to have a lot of people that don't have that great game knowledge. The people that do have game knowledge mostly watch during lockdown or like Australian Survivor, which is fine, but again, they haven't been these people that have been checking out the show for years upon years. And overall, I feel like this version of Survivor UK, at least from what I saw from the first episode, almost seems to have glossed over Survivor US and not really taken any notes from that show. I mean, maybe minimalistic, but it seems to be very much kind of taking aspects from Australian Survivor and bringing it here to the UK with the more physical challenges, with the cast having a bit less game knowledge, maybe more recruits on it, better age diversity than Survivor US, kind of similar to Australian Survivor that has very good age diversity, and then of course the more episodes per eliminations. And I do wonder, I'm hoping we don't, but I do wonder if we're getting non-elimination episodes, because again, it's a 16 episode season with a cast of 18 players. If someone quits or gets medevaced, that's going to be a bit of an issue. But let me know what you think about this episode of Survivor UK in the comments down below, and also leave a like, subscribe if you want me to cover more Survivor UK episodes, because it's going to be a lot. I can't promise I'll get them all out on time, but again, I'm having fun with the show. I am excited to see the next episode. I'm not sure if it's because it's Survivor UK and I've been waiting so many years to finally see it back on my TV screen, or if it's because the episode was actually good, but I guess we'll see. But time will tell, I guess, with the next few episodes, how I'm truly feeling. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments. If you do want to check out more content on the channel, I actually played in a pretty chaotic org known as Chaotic Reality, so if you do want to see insanity unfold, then make sure to check that out. Thank you all for watching the video, and peace!